Kia ora mai tātou. I'm standing here feeling woefully inadequate after that presentation. I think I'll blame our employers that nobody actually gave me a presentation to put forward for something up here, but I'll do my best to give you a picture of the conversation that we had this morning. Ko Erin Simpson tokinga. I'm here as the chair of the Hawke's Bay Labour Governance Group, and today I was privileged to be able to facilitate a conversation with the employers that were here today. So it was a closed employer forum where we had a conversation about the past, the present and potentially the future. We had a look at some slides that gave us a picture about where the RSE scheme has come from, and we had a conversation about just some of the frustrations, some of the disappointments and some of the celebrations that employers wanted to talk about at the moment. So we had 100 odd employers in the room, which represented a fair chunk, I'd imagine, of RSE employers across Aotearoa, New Zealand. And some of the key themes that came up for me from that session was, the first one was kotahitanga, was unity. There was a huge amount of unified conversation in the room around some of the things that we need to celebrate from the RSE scheme, but also some of the things that potentially we could have a good look at to try and find some improvements for the future. So that was one of the really key elements that came out of that, which was great. There was definitely a unified voice in the room, and there was a strong enthusiasm towards working collectively to try and find some improvements and some innovations that would provide some sustainability to the scheme going forward. So I was listening with interest to Dr. Alisi's overview of their kōrero, and there was a lot of similarities, different context maybe, but there was a lot of similarities between the conversations that we had in these rooms. Key, if I was going to think about some key themes that came through that, and thanks to Colin Bond, who let me take a picture of his notes to bring these forward, but and those key sort of themes were narrative. There was a strong feeling that although there's a huge amount of success with the RSE scheme, that as employers and potentially the industry, we're not very good at drafting or creating the narrative that really creates that positive picture of what it is that RSE does from a business perspective, from an industry perspective, but also from a social equality perspective. There's some narrative there that we need to capture. So that came up quite strongly as an agreed theme to go forward. The next one was data. So there's lots of data. I mean, the data fills the airwaves now, doesn't it? It's everywhere, and AI just sort of attempts to bring it all together, but nobody really knows how that works either. But there's some facts around the data that we can generate from the RSE scheme and from the industries that employ people through that scheme. And we haven't captured that data very well. I know that we've got Matua Bedford in the room and Charlotte that have done some fantastic jobs over the years of trying to bring that data together. But we don't have anything that really brings that into a full narrative or creates the full picture of how that can be really evident for conversations going forward. So that was another area that the group really felt there needed to be some further work done. The next one was process. And I think we didn't dig into the detail of some of the frustrations that employers are seeing at the moment, but it was very clear when we started talking about some of the process that we work with at the moment that there's some real gaps there. And there was a view that documenting those gaps with a view to try and find sustainable solutions about how to improve them was something that an employer group should really be thinking about strongly at the moment. With the absence of the review or any actual time frame around when that review might happen, it's really important that we start thinking about putting our ideas together. Those were pretty much the main things that we talked about, and I hear the wonderful noise in the background, but just want to finish with a couple of words that came through quite strongly, and one was the expectation, is that we need to be really clear about the expectations that are required for employers on both sides of the camp. So we need to be really clear, and they need to be clearly defined, and also around consistency. There needs to be consistency around a lot of the things that we talked about today. The employers in the room agreed that there needs to be strong action going forward. They've agreed to utilise the structures we've got through the Regional Labour Governance Group and then the National Labour Governance Group to bring those ideas about how we can create this innovative approach to the future forward. And there was a consensus to stand up and be a lot more visible about how we go about doing that. So I think as a starting point, as a first step, and not wanting to just be the talk fest that goes nowhere, there's a strong sense at the moment that we need to push on and create something positive out of the conversations this morning. So, kia ora tātou, thank you.
Another.
Oh, cool, thank you.
Awesome.